We have quorum. Where am I? Okay, we'll do without. Good morning. I am Councillor Gord Perks and I am the chair of the Planning and Housing Committee. We have quorum. I am calling meeting 31 to order. Welcome everyone. Today's meeting is being held by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room 1. This meeting is also being live streamed online at youtube.com Toronto City Council Live. Although we may be meeting in different locations today, the Planning and Housing Committee would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. If you are registered to speak at today's meeting, please listen for me to call your name. I will call speakers in the order they appear on the list. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Planning and Housing Committee page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. If you are present in the room and wish to register on an item, please come up to the glass partition located on my right-hand side, and a member of the clerk's staff will come to you. Members, the City Clerk has provided all agenda materials on toronto.ca/council and on CMP, the Clerk's Meeting Portal. The Clerk's IT staff are available to members if you need help with your devices. I also want to remind you to please submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at phc@toronto.ca to help with motions. Are there any declarations of interest? I see none. Can I have a motion to confirm the minutes? Councillor Myers, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay, before we dive into the agenda, I have a sad duty, well, maybe a happy one. Jane Welsh, who is not in attendance today, but I understand is watching the meeting. Jane's currently off, as is typical for her, volunteering to help advance her profession. But she is no longer going to be a City of Toronto employee. She's decided to retire from the City Planning Department after a 30-year career with the Toronto Public Service. Jane has guided the creation of City Planning's environment team and its work since amalgamation. Her legacy is seen throughout the city as she developed and shaped and guided environmental policy over the last 20 years as the project manager of the environmental planning unit in City Planning. Jane's contribution include the development of key citywide policies, such as all the environment policies in the official plan, the Toronto Green Standard, the Toronto Green Roof Bylaw, the first Ravine Bylaw, the creation of bird-friendly guidelines, the city's first biodiversity strategy, and the city's first ravine strategy. Jane's been involved in developing communication pieces that connect Torontonians with nature in the city, including the popular biodiversity booklet series, and folks, it is great, get them. And the enduring Wilderness Toronto's Natural Parkland book. For her outstanding contributions, Jane was inducted as a Fellow of the Canadian Society of Landscape Architects in 2018 in the category of Administrative Professional Work in Public Agencies of Government Services, Direct Service to Society. Congratulations, Jane, on your public service and lasting contributions to a more resilient and sustainable Toronto. And if I can add on a personal note, in part, it's Jane's fault that I'm sitting in this chair. So all of you who are excited at me being here can thank Jane, and those of you who have other opinions can share all those other opinions with her too. When I was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed young activist in the environmental movement, I got involved in something called the City of Toronto Environmental Roundtable, for whom Jane was the key staff support. And as a member of the public, I had the great good luck of Jane mentoring me and how City Hall worked and how to get things done here. And Jane and I co-conspired with Deputy Mayor Pantalone, Deputy Mayor at the time, to create things like the Toronto Green Standard and the City Green Roof Bylaw. Jane is one of those very rare people who utterly changed the way we all live in Toronto, but no one's ever heard of her. And I want to offer her my personal great thanks for making Toronto a much, much better place to live. Okay. Before now, why don't we do the agenda rundown? First item is our Plan Toronto recommendations on the East Harbour Employment Area conversion request. I'm going to defer that to the next meeting. Councillor Fletcher would like to have a chance to review that and discuss it at our next and final meeting. So, yeah? Okay, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item number 2, zoning for low carbon technologies. We have deputants. Item number 3, housing action plan, including low-rise residential lands into zoning bylaw 569/2013, Scarborough District. I'll just move approval. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 31-4, Toronto Builds, 40 Bushby official plan and zoning bylaw amendment decision report approval. This is housing approval. Councillor Nunziata, you're a friend of housing. Why don't you move it?
Yes, I'll move it.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 31-5, Billy Bishop Airport proposed expansions, response to council request for information on housing and transportation impacts. We have deputants on that item. Item PH 31-6, amendment to Municipal Code Chapter 27, Council Procedures, and Municipal Code Chapter 925, permit parking, streamlining permit parking exclusions for new developments. I'm just going to very quickly, in the politest way possible, say it's about damn time. This actually solves a problem that we've had with development applications where we had to move separate motions on each and every one of them to exclude them from permit parking zones. This now makes that automatic, which is what we had thought we had approved years ago. But it's done, and now we can be happy. So I'll move it. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 31-7, Toronto Local Appeal Body, Chair's Annual Report. Anyone want to hold that one? No? Anyone want to move it? Oh, Councillor Crisanti had his hand up first. All those in favor, opposed, carried. PH 31-8, preserving affordable homes at 38 Abell Street and 210 Simcoe Streets. Does anyone want to hold that? No? I'll move it. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 31-9, authority to enter into municipal housing project facility agreements with community housing providers.
Yes, I have a motion.
Councillor Nunziata?
Okay, I do have an amendment, and the staff could put that amendment on the screen. I have been working with city staff on that and with the Board of Beach Hall Seniors. And as you know, we've also received a letter from the chair of the board for Beach Hall. Just a couple minutes. So Beach Hall, I think we've spoken about it many times here, and I would suggest that staff go to the YouTube and watch the documentary of the Battle of Beach Hall. It's very interesting. This is the first co-op building ever. And this building is, was built, I believe, in the 70, 80 years ago. Years ago in the 70s, the city of York, and that's why I have the shirt on, the city of York, they wanted to demolish these buildings. There's 16 buildings. And fortunately, the seniors protested against the demolition of these buildings, and we kept the buildings, and it's a co-op building now. And so the seniors in this building have, they've struggled over the years, and they've experienced flooding in that area. This is in the Rockcliffe area as well. And so the reason for this amendment is that they will be signing the lease, but they need support from the city because they've kept their rents at a very low cost to the seniors, that they don't have a reserve account for any of the capital work in the future. And because it's a city building, 16 buildings, that we do have an obligation to secure the buildings that the city owns, and as well help the seniors in that beach hall co-op housing. So I want to thank the city staff that worked with me and worked with the board. I do encourage staff or members of council to go to YouTube and watch the documentary of the Battle of Beach Hall. Very interesting. It was the first time that we fought against City Hall on demolishing a building, and the community won. So I think that I want to thank everyone that was involved in it, and I think this is support to the seniors that we have that have lived there for 50 years plus in these buildings. So I hope you'll support my amendment, and thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to the item? No? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item is amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item 3110, Humber Bay Shores Christie's redevelopment and Park Lawn Go Station. I see Deputy Mayor Morley is here. Do you want to?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm happy to, if it's possible, to hold the item down. I'll pop into committee if we can deal with that shortly.
Okay, I'll hold it for you.
Thank you.
Item PH 3111, continuous improvement to the Committee of Adjustment status update. I have deputants on that one. Item PH 3112, overview of Bill 98, implications with respect to planning matters. I have deputants on that. Item PH 3113, development activity 2025. I have deputants. Item PH 3114, 339 Queen Street East, proposed amendment to designating bylaw under Part 4, Section 30.1 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Anyone want to hold that one? No? I'll move it. Okay, it's been moved. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 3115, 4150 Yonge Street, notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Does anyone want to hold that? No? I'll move it. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 3116, 34 Jason Road, notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Well, that's in a table news.
I will move that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councillor Crisanti is moving it. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 3117, 328 Bellamy Road North, notice of intention to designate a property under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Anyone want to hold that one? That's in Scarborough. Perhaps Councillor Myers would like to move it. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Item PH 3118, requesting reasonable regulation of length and depth of multiplexes in residential multiple zones. This one's been added already, eh? On the agenda, okay. This is a letter from Deputy Mayor Morley. Deputy Mayor Morley, what would you like to do? Oh, we have a deputant on it.
Yeah, I believe there's a speaker, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
So you get to hang with us all day.
Look forward to it.
Okay.
Oh, there is, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe that completes our agenda rundown. Okay. Back to the top of the agenda. Item 2, zoning for low carbon technologies. We have deputants. First is Brian Purcell. I can see Brian. Brian online?
Oh, just in front.
Oh, there you are. You were hiding. Hi, Brian. You know the drill here. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Purcell. I'm the Vice President of Policy and Programs at the Atmospheric Fund. We're a public agency that works with public and private partners to advance practical solutions to climate change that support affordability, equity, and resilience. And I'm here today to just briefly signal our strong support for the proposed amendments to Toronto's zoning bylaw to enable low-carbon technologies. At its core, this is about removing barriers that are standing in the way of community climate action. Achieving the city's climate goals requires widespread adoption of low-carbon technologies by property owners across the city. But in many cases, outdated zoning rules, some of which have no known rationale or public policy purpose, make it unnecessarily difficult to take even straightforward steps like insulating a building, installing a heat pump, adding solar, or putting in EV charging. These are practical, proven climate solutions, and they should be easy to implement for our citizens and businesses. The proposed amendments take an important step by reducing unnecessary restrictions and red tape. In doing so, they not only will accelerate climate action, but also reduce the need for site-specific zoning variances and amendments, helping lower workload pressures both for residents, businesses, and city staff. And just as importantly, they will lead to real benefits for residents and businesses. They'll make it easier and more affordable to adopt key low-carbon technologies that reduce energy use and emissions, help lower energy bills, improve comfort, strengthen resilience, especially as energy prices are rising and our electricity system is facing increasing demand. And these zoning reforms also support equity, but they enable these technologies to be adopted across a wider range of property types, including smaller lots and denser neighborhoods that weren't able to meet some of the restrictions in the bylaw. And the city's essentially broadening access to solutions that have often been limited to certain types of buildings and neighborhoods, making it more accessible citywide for all residents and businesses. So it's really about also making sure the benefits of the energy transition are shared more widely. I want to take a minute to thank city staff and the Planning Department and Environment and Climate Division for their work on this report and for engaging with us and our wide range of stakeholders through the process of exploring these changes. This kind of collaboration is essential, and we look forward to continuing to work with the city on the next package of low-carbon zoning reforms expected to come back to council next year. And indeed, we've already started working with industry stakeholders to start to identify the next tranche of low-carbon zoning barriers, and so we're looking forward to getting into that in more detail. In closing, these are common sense amendments that are practical. They're clearly aligned with Toronto's climate commitments. They remove outdated rules, empower residents and businesses, and help unlock wider adoption of low-carbon technologies we need to meet our climate goals. So TAF fully supports the proposed amendments, and we encourage you to adopt them. And that's all I have to say. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for the deputy? No? Brian, as always, thank you so much for your advice.
Thank you for your time.
Yvonne Verlinden? Hi, Yvonne. I understand you're online.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Welcome. So you have 5 minutes to address the committee, and you can start as soon as you're ready.
Sorry, it just says content sharing is unavailable. Could I please share a presentation?
Okay, we'll give you that permission.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, Yvonne, we lost you temporarily, but you're back.
Okay.
There may be some kind of bandwidth issue that's preventing you from sharing. I don't
I'm
know.
just, I think it's just because I'm in the midst of attempting to share.
There you go.
So I think, can you see my presentation now?
There it is. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to start my timer here. And I'd like to start off by welcoming all of you to our home in Cabbagetown, where we installed a heat pump in 2023. And it was very helpful to us, but it was also illegal because we did not meet that 6-meter setback requirement. Sorry. The tricky part is this is our lot line right up against the front of our building. So everything that you see in our front yard here is actually an encroachment in the city's right of way. It's very easy to remove a heat pump with AI, very difficult and costly in real life. And the question remains, what about everything else? I think we can agree that this is not our goal. So how did we end up with a heat pump on city property in our front yard? Well, it's because we faced what I call an options deficit, which looks like this. If you have a detached home, you have 5 options for installing a heat pump. Semi-detached, 4 options. Add an alleyway beside your house, you have 3 options. Make it 3 stories, you have 2 options because you lose access to your roof. Add make your backyard very small and complicated, you have 1 option, and if the city owns your front yard, you have no good options. Is this case unique? I heard this a lot, and so I commissioned some mapping to try to debunk this myth. What you're going to be wanting to look for is the purple, which represents buildings with 3 or more lot lines within a 30 centimeter buffer. These are likely the row houses with city-owned front yards. And I will just say, we're talking about buildings here. 1 building could be multiple homes, as in the case of a row house. Starting with Cabbagetown, we can see lots of streets with long stretches of purple. 24% of all buildings have 3 or more lot lines within 30 centimeters of the boundary. Wychwood Park, we see less, but still quite a bit of purple around, especially around Davin Park. The beaches, we have Kingston Road and Queen Street, those areas showing some purple. Here we have Parkdale, Ward 4, Junction, Ward 9, the Annex, Ward 11, Riverdale, Ward 14, and Ward 10, which has the highest. 42% of all buildings in Ward 10 have 3 or more lot lines within the 30 centimeter buffer. And here we're looking at Trinity Bellwoods. So the key learning here is there should be no surprise that there are heat pumps on city property, and yet I kept encountering it. That tells me that there needs to be more people at the table and more work to be done to identify every scenario. So add transportation, MLS, and CREM to the Low Carbon Technologies Working Group. Take an inventory of current and recent bylaw infractions in order to see what the problems are and test whether the amendments will resolve those issues. Conduct citywide mapping to identify the proposal's impact. For many homes, the removal of the 6-meter setback is going to make a big difference. For the homes I'm talking about here, it won't. And finally, add a transitional clause to protect early adopters who may already have a bylaw investigation open against them, as we do. My last section is about process. Our journey to a compliant heat pump in our front yard, which is city property, has been a difficult one. It's been 18 months and we still haven't achieved it. If we were looking to complain about someone else's heat pump, though, the process would be very easy, very accessible, and free. The key learning here is that this process for requesting an encroachment agreement is cumbersome and obscure, and yet it is going to be essential for the adoption of low carbon technologies across Toronto. So clarify that encroachment agreements nullify setback requirements and a COA trip is not required. That's Committee of Adjustment trip. Publish guides for industry and residents. Update the Committee of Adjustment form to make things clearer. Streamline and reduce fees for an encroachment agreement. It is quite expensive. And develop a request tool that is as visible and as easy as reporting a complaint. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Yvonne. Just as an FYI, so I just quickly conferred with the city staff who work in this area. This is what we have in front of us here today is phase 1 of the work. And I confirmed with them that the kinds of issues you raised will be considered in part 2 of that review, which is coming. And if you'll note, on the city report, there's contact information for the relevant staff. So if you want to directly communicate with them in more detail, I'd encourage you to do that.
Great. Yeah, I have had the opportunity to chat with them and they were very helpful.
They're so helpful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks very much. Any questions? No? Okay. Yvonne, thank you so much. The next deputy I have listed is Ali Pell. Hi, Ali. So if you can just settle in, make sure the microphone button is turned green, and you've got 5 minutes.
Perfect. Councillor Perks and members of the committee, I am Ali Pell from the Ontario Clean Air Alliance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about City staff's proposals to remove zoning barriers to parking lot solar. We support...
Ali, can I ask you to get a little closer to the microphone so that people online can hear you better?
Yes. We support staff's proposals to allow solar canopies to be installed on parking lots that abut one or more city streets. However, we believe that there is one more significant zoning barrier to parking lot solar that needs to be removed. Currently, Toronto zoning code states that the number of parking spaces for an existing building may not be reduced. Prohibiting the removal of parking spaces for solar canopy installation will severely limit the adoption of this technology. City staff's draft amendment package includes provisions that permit lawful parking spaces to be removed and replaced by EV charging equipment. We believe that this provision should extend to solar canopies, allowing owners of existing lots to reduce the number of parking spaces to accommodate canopy parking supports where necessary. Parking solar canopies provide clean electricity that can be used right where it's produced. This technology can reduce pollution, lower electricity bills, and increase energy security. And according to a report prepared for OCA in 2024, solar canopies covering half of the surface area of Toronto's large open-air parking lots could produce twice as much electricity as the Portland's gas plant. Permissive zoning for parking lot solar canopies is an essential step towards decarbonizing Toronto's electricity grid. In conclusion, we encourage the Planning and Housing Committee to further improve the amendments to Bylaw 569/2013 by allowing lawful parking spaces to be removed and replaced by parking lot canopies and their structural supports. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them.
Thank you, Ali. Are there any questions for Ali? No? Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you.
That concludes the list of deputies that I have. Are there any questions of staff? No, seeing none. Does anyone wish to speak to the item? Councillor Sachs, welcome to Planning and Housing.
Well, yes, thank you. So this is, we're experiencing many defeats on the climate front. We're not making a lot of progress on the backbone of Transform TO. This is one of the few places where we are making progress. I do want to thank the zoning staff and also James Nolan and his team. This is only possible because both of them responded to my repeated requests that we do something about the things that we can do to get out of our own way. And it was possible because Carl Knock and his team were prepared to take the work on after James Nolan offered them an FTE to help with all of the environmental side. So this is a really good example of cooperation between different departments to take concrete action, tangible action within our power to advance the directive that Council has given that we are in a climate emergency. I'd love to have all of it here, but at least we have a piece. I do also want to thank the Atmospheric Fund, with my hat on as Vice Chair of the Atmospheric Fund. It was the original impetus that came from TAF, identifying a long list of self-inflicted barriers and with a challenge to do something about it. And here we are. And yes, it took 2 years, but we are getting something significant done. And we did one piece also last year with apartment buildings. So we are making progress, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this? No, I'll just speak briefly. Thank you, Councillor Sachs, for working on this. I just want to situate it maybe a bit differently. The City of Toronto, you're quite right, hasn't been achieving everything we can or imagined in transformed TO, but the principal barrier there hasn't been the City of Toronto. The principal areas where we've been unable to achieve what we set out are those areas where we depend on intergovernmental relations. We've really been let down by both the federal and provincial governments. We've always been a leader here at the City of Toronto in finding ways to make green electricity legal. The City of Toronto actually was the first municipality in Canada that I can think of to find innovative ways to make suggestions to the province to change the building code to allow for things like rooftop solar. And that was work done by a former chief building official, Anne Baroa, who sadly is no longer with us. So I want to congratulate city staff for continuously working on this and for always keeping their eye open for new and exciting ways to make Toronto greener and cleaner. And with that, and cheaper, yes. I think it's a triple bottom line win. So with that, I'll move the recommendations. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Okay. Oh, here's something non-controversial. PH 31.5, Billy Bishop Airport proposed expansion, response to council request for information on housing and transportation impacts. I have a number of deputants. First is Ed Hoare. Look at the army of public servants coming to assist us. Hi, Ed.
Good morning. Thanks very much. Members of the committee for listening. My name is Ed Hoare. I am chairman of Waterfront for All, which is a kind of a conglomeration of groups interested in the Toronto waterfront. I'm a lawyer by profession. I wanted to appear just to speak to the staff report that is before you. That is an important document, I believe. It confirms something that has been evident for a while, which is that everything about the current jet proposal is amateurish and vague. It's not a serious proposal at all. So the city, I submit, has an absolutely key role. It has to be the grown-up in the room, the fact finder. It has no choice. No one else seems to be asking what the actual impact of the jet's proposal are. As the staff report says, there's almost no information available. Impacts can't be assessed. The city was never consulted. It learned about the new JETS plan from the newspapers. Neither the federal government nor the provincial government seems to think the details matter, but of course they do. Many federal MPs are saying there's no proposal yet, so we can't comment. And yet the federal government wants the public to comment through a survey, even though there's no information. A serious proposal would be based on studies by authoritative third parties saying that there's a need to expand the island airport. There's nothing like that. We do know that the impacts on the waterfront are huge. Earlier this year, as you may know, TPA, Toronto Port Authority, released a 1,000-page environmental assessment completed almost 9 years ago, but withheld from the government. It said that the 2013 JETS proposal had all kinds of negative impacts on marine navigation, neighborhoods, and public health. The staff report that's now before you says the impacts of this jet proposal on housing and water quality are probably even worse. There's a report from Air Canada's consultants in 2015 that says the whole JETS plan then was unworkable and uneconomic due to limited ground space and the constraints of urban setting. We also know passenger numbers at the island airport are dropping. As the staff report mentions, we now have the Up Express, Pearson is being expanded, billions have been spent on waterfront revitalization. If you want to build something like a building, the first step is to do detailed plans, visuals, maybe a model so everyone can see what you're proposing. Also do financial projections, explain to the bank how the numbers work. TPA hasn't done that. The TPA has a track record of non-serious proposals. At the time of the 2013 to 2015 JETS proposal, in which I was heavily involved, no detailed plans were ever submitted to Transport Canada for approval. For 2.5 years, everyone had to guess. There's a cost to the vagueness and amateurness of this proposal. Hundreds of thousands of people are impacted by the planning disruption, as the report says. The city should say to the federal government and TPA, get serious or quash the proposal. If you're serious, we need the details. What are the flight paths and the instrument procedures that Transport Canada will approve? What are the impacts on building heights, housing, and city growth? What are the effects on recreational boating and the quality of life? When are you filing detailed plans with the regulators? That never happened last time. What runway and airport configuration will the regulator approve? Will there be runway approach lighting dominating the Harbour and Humber Bay? Will the Western Gap be closed to boat traffic? What about water quality? What are the health impacts? What infrastructure on the city side is needed if we increase the number of passengers to the airport by 5 or 6 times? How much will it disrupt the waterfront? We need to know all these things. The city should keep asking for details and assessing the impacts as more information becomes available, because no one else is doing it. I think the report, I'm a little unclear on the procedure here. My understanding is that this committee has to recommend that it go before council, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the procedure, but I would recommend that that be done. I think it's an important issue, and the report should go before council as well as before this committee. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Hi. Are there any questions of the deputy? Maybe I'll ask a couple. Now you've been digging into this for a while now.
Yep.
And you've read the EA document quite closely.
Yes.
Could you give me a little bit more your thinking on what some of the impacts might be in terms of, say, water quality?
Well, the water quality issue boils down to the fact that the longer runway, it's proposed to be 600 meters, it would stick out into the Western Gap, might potentially block the Western Gap, but at least reduce it. So that means that there'd be less water flushing. The water in the harbor would not be renewed. The much smaller extension proposed last time, according to the EA, according to Toronto Port Authority's own document, was going to double the time that water sat in the harbor, from 6 days to about 12 days. This is much longer. It's about 3 times longer. Presumably the time the water would spend in the harbor would be much longer. So it would become, we need to investigate, of course, but it would seem that it would become a kind of a stagnant pool, defeating all of the very expensive efforts that the city has made to improve the water quality.
Are there any other questions, the deputy? No? As always, thank you so much for your advice. Next, we have Norm Di Pasquale.
Okay, I'll make it so in the with.
Sure.
Sorry. Sales.
I hear Norm's voice.
That sounds ideal.
I don't know what that is. Norm? Can you hear me, Norm?
We're going to company. Right, sorry.
Okay, Norm, something
We've got the
unusual is
global
going on,
ones.
so we're
We've
going
only
to...
got one of these, which I'm guessing means that that's language US.
So, yeah, Norm, we're going to come back to you. The clerks will try to get in touch and see what we can do to fix this. The next deputy I have listed is Diana Chan McNally. Ah, there you are. Hi, Diana. You've been here before. You know how it goes.
I'm not a first timer. This is true. So as stated, my name is Diana Chan McNally, and I am a resident of Parkdale High Park. In fact, I live just a 5-minute walk from the water, which is my dedicated green space along with thousands of my immediate neighbors. And I can say unequivocally that we do not want jets or an expanded airport on our waterfront. In fact, just yesterday, I traveled 350 kilometers to Parliament Hill to deliver a petition to my MP, Kareem Bardisi, to keep our waterfront public. I launched this petition just 48 hours ago specifically for residents of Parkdale High Park, and the level of response, over 550 signatures, clearly demonstrates how wildly opposed local residents are to this expansion. I do want to thank the City of Toronto for fighting this proposal and the egregious overreach by the provincial government to shut out the city from the tripartite agreement. But I am also fundamentally aware that the federal government controls 2/3 of the agreement, and they are in this moment the key holders to ending the airport expansion. Sadly, in meeting with my MP yesterday, I did not get a firm commitment to stop the expansion. However, through pushing the federal government, we have made real and tangible progress. MPs such as Chi Nguyen, Salma Zahid, and Rob Oliphant dissenting with their caucus on this issue. We pushed the federal government hard on public consultation and won a survey that was released just yesterday, albeit a survey with leading questions and no clear opportunity to oppose the expansion outright. But these are real concessions that we can continue to push upon collectively to win what we all want to see, everyone in this room, to keep our waterfront public. I am here to keep pushing with everyone, including the City of Toronto. I do not want the air quality immediately around my home to be compromised. The staff report that we have before us today details significant public health concerns for people living on Toronto's waterfront, concerns that might require retrofits to hundreds of thousands of homes. Now, who would be expected to pay for this? Would it be the city, the province, the federal government? We also have to recognize that we have schools and community centers that might also be impacted. Again, who would pay for those retrofits? I don't think it should be the City of Toronto if this moves forward, and we're doing everything in our power to stop it. And what about the 86,000 homes that would be directly impacted along Humber Bay? We are in the midst of a housing crisis, and these homes would be entirely at risk because they exist within the airspace that would be required to operate an expanded airport. We cannot afford to abandon these plans, let alone to bolster the profits of an American investment bank. And what about traffic concerns? Any expansion to the island airport would require commensurate expansion of transportation infrastructure, and right now, we already have untenable traffic at Bathurst Quay. This is a significant burden on the City of Toronto to increase multimodal transit infrastructure to accommodate a proposed 10 million visits a year, and these in turn could impact waterfront access overall. Now, I am certain my colleagues and neighbors in the room will detail so many more issues than I have even brought forward today. But I do want to reiterate, this is not inevitable. Again, we have pushed our federal government to act, and they are, in this moment, reacting. We cannot stop now, and I am here to support the city. I'll say this again, I'm with you on this, and everyone in the room today who is deputing on this, everyone who couldn't make it today, to achieve the outcomes we want and which we, everyone to come after us, absolutely deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Could you tell me a little bit more? You said that there would have to be retrofits on housing. Tell me a little bit more about what you meant there.
Yeah, the report details that there would be significant impacts in terms of pollution that would impact homes that are directly located on the waterfront. Things like not being able to go out on your balcony, things like indoor air quality would be impacted. You cannot live in those kinds of circumstances. We are talking about a significant public health risk. So it would require retrofits to those buildings, again, to mitigate the indoor air quality to ensure that people could actually live healthy lives. And I've said before, who would be expected to pay for that? That's a significant undertaking. And I don't think, again, the city should be on the hook for something like that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Diana? Nope. Diana, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next deputy I have listed is Mandavni Dami. No? No? How are we doing with getting in touch with Norm? Norm, we're going to try you again. Can you hear me, Norm? No? Oh.
People need to kind of be struggling for things, but it's not
Nope.
busy them.
No,
There's Norm now.
it's never a dull moment with UAT. No.
Hi, Norm. We can hear you now.
Great. And then I'll let it go.
Awesome. Thanks for your help, Rini.
Cheers.
Okay, cheers. Bye.
Norm, we can hear you. Can you hear us? You know how there's like fears that the AI is watching us all the time? It's actually this committee that's watching you all the time.
Oh, God.
Okay, we'll try that again in a moment. The next deputy I have listed is Waleed Kogali Ali. Waleed? No? Is Waleed online? No. Okay. That means that only Norm is outstanding at this point. I'm afraid it's just not working. So why don't we go to questions of staff? I see there are a number of councillors who aren't on the committee visiting us today, including 2 deputy mayors. Do any members have questions of staff? Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and good morning to my colleagues on the committee. Thanks for the warm welcome. I do have some questions of staff, and I have quite a few, so I'll get right started. I will also get you to keep me honest and start my time. Thank you. To staff, the report before us states that areas subject to instrument flight procedures will be expanded north of the airport and over Etobicoke. What does that mean, and what does that mean for residents of those areas?
Through the chair, the best way to interpret that would be to understand that about half of the total change affecting housing under the flight path is in South Etobicoke, going from about 12,000 to 24,000 residents.
Thank you. I think those are really important stats and pieces of data points that are of interest to my waterfront communities for sure. Table 5 estimates the existing population living under flight paths will increase by 25%. You mentioned 50% of the impact, but 25% increase. Can we estimate what portion of that increase would be located specifically in South Etobicoke?
About 50% of the increase is in South Etobicoke.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you. And so the Toronto Port Authority has indicated there would be more than a 5-fold increase in passenger levels with this proposal. Is it correct that not only would more Toronto residents be living under a flight path, but the number of flights would also significantly increase?
Through the chair, in order to reach 10 million passengers per year, it would mean removal of a limitation on number of flight movements and also removal of the time limitations for which flights can arrive and depart Billy Bishop.
I know that the report begins to detail, and I hope you can provide some highlights of the impacts to livability and public health that we anticipate would come with living under a flight path of this nature.
The report identifies a few ways that would happen. Many of those are related to noise and air quality impacts that would be expected, and how that will impact the design of future development, what we have seen in cases near airports, and what the case is currently. It can impact whether or not you can have things like openable windows and outdoor amenity space and balconies and those types of things. So that would be affected in new development.
And all of our analysis is layered onto existing conditions, understanding South Etobicoke is already a flight path to our neighbors in Mississauga at Pearson Airport. Are we layering on those existing realities with the projections as well?
Through the chair, the way we undertook our analysis was to review how the instrument flight procedures would be lifted and shifted to the west in order to accommodate what the media has reported for a westward expansion of the runway. We already know that there are flight paths going through South Etobicoke serving Pearson, and what we see is an extension of areas that would be affected by instrument flight procedures in South Etobicoke.
That's very helpful, thank you, and we'll continue to follow that part of the conversation. Has any comprehensive plan been shared with the city? I think we heard this in preamble as well in feedback from deputants, but to show justification or rationale for this expansion?
No, it has not.
In terms of the Pearson Airport plans for upgraded facilities and expansion there, do we have an idea of whether the Pearson Airport expansion has been considered with the proposal for expansion at Billy Bishop?
Through the chair, it is the federal government that does the regional assessment of airspace needs and airport requirements, and we have not seen any analysis to that effect.
Thank you. And I just have one, maybe two-parter left. We know that not far away, Ontario Place, the exhibition are undergoing significant redevelopment, also undertaken by the province, which includes a 3,500 space parking garage, a new science center, etc. Can you highlight for us what we anticipate the predicted congestion impacts will be from those projects in addition to this proposed expansion on Lakeshore Boulevard West and the Gardiner?
Through the chair, we don't have specific numbers, but those projects are very close by and will be adding congestion, adding traffic in the same area as the airport expansion. So it will be multiplied.
And so it's safe to say that we absolutely anticipate a significant impact to auto traffic if this expansion proceeds.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I had Deputy Mayor Malik next.
Thank you very much. So my first question is, how do the potential impacts on housing outlined in this report align or not align with the city's work and the provincial government's own pressure to build more housing?
So the report identifies, I would say, broadly speaking, three ways that this is going to have, we do anticipate will have an impact on housing delivery and housing development. There's the direct impacts of changes to the likely changes to the airport zoning regulations, the instrument flight procedures that could have an impact on heights and densities of new development. There's also the impacts on design that I spoke to earlier, where even if development can proceed, we would expect there to be design restrictions on that new development. And then there is, broadly speaking, the impact on general livability and quality of life in the waterfront area, in the South Etobicoke area, in the downtown core, all of which have been identified as significant growth areas for the City of Toronto.
Can you just speak more to what you're alluding to when you say design?
Yes, what is typical if you are building in an area that's impacted by the noise and air quality impacts of an airport, and this exists today, but the impacted area would be larger in the future with an expanded airport. You can see restrictions on buildable heights. You can see restrictions on not being permitted balconies, windows that can open, restrictions on rooftop amenity spaces or having significant sound barriers around rooftop amenity spaces. These are all the kinds of mitigation requests we've had for development in and near airports already, and we would expect that would increase with an expanded airport.
For my community, the report detailing the transportation issues that would come from an expansion and what is being speculated as 5 times as many passengers as there are right now is very concerning. Can you describe how roadways would need to change to accommodate this increase in passenger traffic, and how that's consistent with our city's work to mitigate and address congestion?
So to accommodate the number of additional passengers going to and from the airport, we would be looking at Erin Quay, which is currently a quite narrow street. It would probably need to be the equivalent of Lakeshore Boulevard. That's not saying that that's something that we would support. And then there would be other kinds of improvements that would need to be made to still make transit a strong and viable option for people to get to and from the airport.
Sorry, as far as I had understood that even, you know, some of the changes that you described actually don't address the management of the volume of passengers, because there are other roadways where we actually have nowhere else to go.
Through the chair, and building on the answer that I gave to Deputy Mayor Morley, we've got a lot happening in that area. There's already huge congestion at Lakeshore and Bathurst. That would be amplified, and even if we were to increase the scale of some of the infrastructure leading down to the airport, we would still have increased congestion in that area. Right, these would, any improvements to the infrastructure would not be able to address all the flows.
This report also indicates that in the Bathurst Key Neighborhood Plan, which the Port Authority was involved with and in the development and part of the development of, included reducing the landside footprint of the airport. Can you share what this work has entailed? That's question number one. And question number two is that there is a note in here that Little Norway is in an area that is already park deficit. What does that mean for communities in a real and tangible way?
Through the chair, I'll respond to the question about the Bathurst Key Neighborhood Association, the Bathurst Key Neighborhood Plan, rather, which focused on ways to improve parks and public spaces as a way of mitigating the role and the impact of the airport on the land side. And through the work of my colleagues here at the city, we have opened the Bathurst Key Common, the Corlick building, significantly reduced the footprint and the visual impact of the taxi corral. And so those pieces of work have been undertaken with the cooperation of the Toronto Port Authority and have radically changed the landscape down in Bathurst Key.
And on the park deficit piece and identifying Little Norway and its importance?
Through the chair, since the build out of Bathurst Key neighborhood in the 80s, Little Norway has been the center of community space. It's 5 acres and essential to life in that neighborhood. Through the staff's experience as well as the deputy mayor's experience, we know that acquiring land for new parkland in this vicinity is extremely expensive, if not constrained by all the development and other competing demands for land.
You're at time now? Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you. First of all, in terms of the, did you as part of your work review the relevance of the environmental assessment that was done in 2017?
Through the chair, yes, it was a foundational piece of the analysis we conducted.
Right, and that, to be fair, that document assumed far fewer residents and fewer flights than if there were no jets, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And so even with far fewer residents, and they only looked at the runway, they didn't assess the impact of adding roads, adding new terminal space. They didn't even assess the impact of adding new taxi lanes, correct?
Through the chair, the environmental assessment from 2017 assessed a range of impacts from socioeconomic to transportation.
Sorry, you didn't understand my question. They talked about impacts, but the thing doing the impact, they only looked at runways. They didn't look at what would be the impacts of adding new roads and all the other features, correct?
Generally speaking, that's correct.
Okay, so even with, and the other thing is they were assuming a maximum number of passengers around 4 million a year, not much less than the 10 million a year that Ford is talking about, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So, even though they were looking at only a fraction of what would have to be built, and far fewer people, and far fewer flights, and far fewer passengers, they still predicted increased health risks for all the people who live near the waterfront, correct?
That was the assumption, yes.
And they also predicted that the jet blast would require elimination of pleasure boating?
The environmental assessment spoke to significant mitigation measures that would be required. However, the full removal of pleasure boating is based on the distance from the runway and the marine exclusion zone.
Right. And in addition to eliminating pleasure boating, they also predicted that just filling in so much of the harbor, creating the expanded runway, would reduce flushing of the harbor. In other words, the harbor would be dirtier.
That is correct.
And if a harbor is dirty and stagnant, there's a big risk of it stinking and filling up with algae?
That is the finding of the environmental assessment, yes.
Okay. Now, in terms of the adequacy of the public consultation that the federal government is undertaking at the moment, is there anyone here with public consultation expertise who can comment on that survey? Yes, not councillors. Is there anyone to speak? We can all speak to it. All right, maybe I'll speak to it then in remarks if there's no one who can answer questions. Thank you.
I actually had quite a bit of fun filling in the survey. Okay, so members of the committee, do any of you have any questions? No? Okay, maybe I've got a couple. On the congestion piece, I just want to try to get an explanation that maybe lay people can understand. First of all, is it conceivable to get to 10 million passengers and have them all come on public transit?
No, that is not conceivable. Currently, we have about 60% that come by transit and active transportation. We expect more with an expanded draw for the airport would be coming by vehicles or wanting to come by vehicle.
Right. And while I appreciate you said that we would have to make Erin Key the same size as the lakeshore, which is by itself mind-blowing, the problem isn't just that, it's that people need to get to the Erin Key.
Yes.
So with the kinds of passenger volumes that we would have, that they're projecting, the road network leading up to the immediate vicinity would also have to be altered. Is that a fair assumption?
That is a fair assumption, and different ideas have been examined in the past, including a tunnel access from Bathurst, maybe extending Dan Leckie down to have another road access down into the airport area. There could be many other ideas.
Give me some of the thing, like I know that the city did try to look at what would be necessary. Give me some more of the ideas that we would have to examine in order to accommodate 10 million people trying to get to this airport.
There are already a significant number of pedestrians and cyclists going down.
I'm talking about the extra automobiles.
Just the extra automobiles.
Yeah. What kind of things would you have to do?
Well, so Bathurst and Lakeshore is already, and Fleet Street is already a significantly constrained and challenged intersection, so there would probably need to be quite a number of interventions to just improve that intersection, if that's possible. The idea that was looked at was some sort of tunnel or other way of moving people.
What other way?
Down.
So tunnels one, what other kinds of things would have to be thought about?
Well, so the Dan Leckie Way is a whole new road that would be coming from another angle down to the airport. There may be other road widenings that would be contemplated. Whether they'd be effective or not, I think is the big question.
So some of these potential road widenings, they would involve property takings, I imagine.
There would be significant impacts on the properties along the Bathurst south of the lakeshore, and certainly Erin Key. That there would be major impacts on the properties around there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? No? So we'll go to speak. Oh, look at you, all got your hands up at the same time. Three-way tie. So talk amongst yourselves. Who's going to go first?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I do have, can we just reset my time, please? Thank you.
Sorry, Chair.
Do you mind if we just reset my time?
Sorry.
Okay. It's a very busy time. Thank you very much, Chair. I do have a motion that clerks has to display on the screen, and it was moved on behalf of on myself by Councillor Perks. Is it possible to share the motion? Okay, thank you. I am a visiting councillor, so it's my mind just a moment. As you can see, this report came forward for more information, and since then, there has been even more information that has been revealed publicly about this process, the impacts, the concerns that we hold as a city, and that we have been hearing from Torontonians and Ontarians from every corner of our communities, and that are raising very, very serious concerns. And this motion looks at some of the very specific aspects of the continued information that is being revealed to us about this airport and the potential for the plans ahead. And getting answers to these questions will enable us to be fully informed, to make sure that we are working alongside our communities, but most of all using every tool that we have at the city to advance our interests in light of what we're seeing. This report highlights a number of areas of concern, and I do want to thank my council colleagues for bringing these requests forward and to have their tremendous support on this issue. Issues around housing, of course, in our downtown and across our waterfront, impacting Etobicoke, congestion that is, of course, a localized issue and one that we have been working to tackle as an entire city. Our public realm and shared spaces, especially in park deficit areas, which we know very well. Our beautiful lake, our waterfront, our harbor, its water quality, and the many uses of it, and so many more issues that continue to come to light through this. A report like this should be cause for concern and for pause from other levels of government. And with the consultation by the federal government underway, these are issues Torontonians should have the information to continue to be raising with them. I've consistently said that decisions about the future operations of the island airport and any decisions on our waterfront must be part of a transparent, democratic, and evidence-based process and decision-making. And the city has repeatedly raised these concerns, these cautions, through evidence, the impacts on housing and the environment, harbor uses in public realm, and traffic and transportation on the waterfront. This report shows that our concerns from all the information that we have, over a considerable period of time are well-founded. The 2017 environmental assessment laid out serious impacts on health, on livability, and on growth, and looking at a further expansion right now will absolutely generate more. The process that has gotten here is not in alignment with how we do our work as a city. The provincial land grab, cutting the city and Torontonians out of the process, the lack of clarity on the federal government's position, and consultation without actually having a plan in front of us is not acceptable. It is not in line with how we have made decisions on our waterfront and how we have made investments on the future of our city and our waterfront at all levels of government. It is not good planning, and it is not how we accept doing work here on something so significant and something so important to Torontonians and to Ontarians here at this council and around our table. And it is not what Torontonians expect. This city council has been clear in opposing this land grab and affirming Torontonians' say on the future of our city and on our waterfront. Literally thousands have spoken out clearly that this chaotic and harmful pattern of provincial overreach is wrong. And I'm very thankful for this report by city staff, for all the advocates and community members, residents, again, in my community, but right across Toronto and right across Ontario, who are seeing this issue for what it is. And I look forward to hearing more, and we will continue to get the information to defend the city's interests in every way possible.
Thank you. Before we continue with this agenda, I have to stop the proceedings. I'm going to give the floor to Speaker Nunziata.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I'm saddened. A police officer, 43 years old, 18 years of service, at 6 a.m. this morning, went for a search warrant, and unfortunately, we just heard that he passed away. So I'm asking that we have a moment of silence.
So if everyone could rise if they're able,
Division.
And we'll take a moment of silence. Thank you. Councillor Sachs, I believe you're next.
Thank you very much. Yes, and my condolences to the family. Yes, I want to echo and support the comments of my colleague, Deputy Mayor Malloch, and her demand for a transparent, evidence-based process. The City of Toronto, the people of Toronto, the affected people are entitled to an opportunity to give prior informed consent. The city has extensive standards for public consultation. And instead, we're being lied to, and we have this pretend consultation with a totally inadequate and misleading survey that's been done without a plan, without a business case, without any accurate environmental information, and with false claims about economic growth. So we have a bully provincial government that has basically stolen our land, our rights, our voice, and a provincial government that's gaslighting us. So we've already heard from staff the environmental assessment that was done in 2017 grossly underestimates how bad this will be. They said it's going to be very bad, but it's going to be more than probably 4 times as bad as that, because their assumptions have nothing to do with the current reality. Their assumptions were none of the current residents and buildings that have been built. Their assumptions were the only thing you had to build was a longer runway, not roads, not parking, not a new terminal building, not taxiways, nothing else. They assumed that there would be fewer flights than if there were no jets, which is hogwash. They assumed a fraction of the number of passengers that Ford is making up. They completely ignored, of course, the fact this is already the most expensive airport in Canada, from what we're told. So we have this environmental assessment that went through no independent process. It was just written for the proponent. We don't know how much independence the consultants had. And even so, even ignoring all the things they left out, it said this is devastatingly bad for our downtown and our waterfront. And with only that, we're now going through this totally misleading public consultation process. So I am, and also another reminder of why we need a charter city. We need more independence from being under the heel of a government that literally doesn't care about Toronto. Having been able to get 3 majority governments without a single vote in downtown Toronto, they literally don't care. In fact, Mr. Ford seems to take pleasure in not listening. But in any event, what we need now, the only people who can save us are the federal Liberal MPs. And they're being very wishy-washy. So they need to hear from all of us and use this horribly, badly misleading, unfair survey as at least an opportunity for everyone possible to say absolutely no unless we have prior informed consent, good evidence, and none of that exists. This is an outrage. This is our generation's Spadina Expressway. We need to do everything we can to stop it. And in the face of the bully Ford, the only person who can stop it is our Prime Minister, and we need to demand that he do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take it into committee. Councillor Matlow? Sorry?
Can I speak as well?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
And I'm sorry, I've got to go back to another meeting.
Sorry, I'm distracted. I'm trying to deal with a bunch of other things. Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to echo the comments of my colleagues, both the Deputy Mayor for her incredible leadership as a local ward councillor, as well as our colleague Councillor Sachs, who has dedicated her life to environmental stewardship and good governance to that end. I think it goes without saying I am strongly opposed to this proposal by the provincial government, and I can clearly and confidently say that the community residents in my ward absolutely share that sentiment and are quite exercised about this issue. I have had hundreds of conversations just in the last few days with people that have expressed their very clear frustration with the provincial government and with the lack of a clear process, a clear rationale, any justification for this move. And these are community members who are deeply rooted in South Etobicoke, who have dedicated their lives to stewarding the community, the green spaces, the waterfront in a good way. And all of that is being compromised through the action of this provincial government. The combination of a westward extension of the runway, allowing jets at the airport, and the significant increase in passenger levels would have unsupportable negative impacts. This includes significant impacts, as we heard, on Etobicoke Lakeshore, with more than 50% of the anticipated traffic going through our community, which is already a flight path for Toronto Pearson Airport, as well as a critically important and sensitive migratory path for our birds and our wildlife. We know that the extension will reduce delivery of housing in areas planned for growth, although we can't quantify that because the city has not received the necessary information to do so. This is yet another drastic change proposed by this provincial government with zero conversation and zero consultation with those most impacted with it, which is Torontonians. Meanwhile, as we know, Pearson Airport has a plan in place to expand their capacity from 45 million to 65 million in the next 5 to 10 years. And that airport is easier to get to by car from outside of the city and has already great transit connections to downtown. Why do we need this? What is the benefit? There is still no detailed plan to answer any of these questions. Maybe the answer and the reason a detailed plan hasn't been shared is that there isn't a justification for this proposal. In fact, I believe it also highlights that the future spa coming to Ontario Place will also be negatively impacted by this decision. And I think it goes to show that we need to have deeper care and consideration when we're contemplating the future of this gem of our city, which is the waterfront. When I look at this, I see profound negative impacts to the environment, to neighborhood livability, to our waterfront parks, and to congestion, which we have finally started to make a positive impact to see going in the right direction. These impacts will be especially pronounced on the Humber Bay Shores community and Mimico residents in Ward 3, which we're going to talk about in another item momentarily, which is already desperately underserved by transit and connectivity options. My concerns have been echoed in what I have heard from residents associations and many of my constituents. It is summer season. We've got lots of events and festivals going on. People are outside, and this is very much top of mind for everyone that I've spoken to in the last number of days. I want to thank my community members for their advocacy and community members across the waterfront, including our deputy mayor and other councillors who share this important Toronto asset that we do, as Councillor Sack said, absolutely need to fight for, defend, and protect. I want to also acknowledge the quick and really important work of our city staff on this report before us and on monitoring this unexpected and fast-moving situation. We heard from one of our deputants the importance of the city playing a role as a fact finder in this situation, and we do need to continue to do that to make sure that Torontonians who are taking their advocacy to Ottawa, taking their advocacy to the legislature, are prepared with the information and the facts as we understand them, knowing those clear impacts and continuing to be clear that this is an unacceptable change from the province, and we will not take it laying down. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I also want to thank Councillor Nunziata for taking a moment of silence here in this committee, and I also want to share my condolences with the family affected, as well as the entire policing community. And I think this is such an important reminder to all of us, the brave work of our frontline officers and emergency responders take on every single day, going into the very difficult and unsafe situations to keep us all safe, and we all owe them a debt of gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Matlow is next.
I also want to share my most heartfelt condolences to the family and friends and the entire police family who've lost an officer. And I know all of us expressed our gratitude to their service and again, condolences. Ever since Premier Ford unilaterally announced that he intends to increase the passenger capacity fivefold of Billy Bishop Airport to introduce jets to the island, and then barrel ahead with legislation to both expropriate parklands from the City of Toronto and remove the City of Toronto's voice from the tripartite agreement. It's been clear that the only path to protecting our waterfront and to protect our city is the federal government, because the provincial government has not been consulting with us. In fact, Doug Ford announced that he made this decision based on a poll that he saw. That was unreasonable. So when I moved the motion to ask for this report, the information provided, and I want to commend staff for doing an extraordinary job on this report. You've spent a great deal of time and effort doing necessary research that is helpful toward our cause, to provide for the first time actual evidence and facts and reality checks to a process that was never initiated by Doug Ford. In fact, Doug Ford did not recognize when he made the announcement that consequential announcements have consequences. Big decisions have big impacts. And it's not just about whether or not you like the idea of a jet. If you ask somebody and you do a poll and you say, hey, would you like to fly to Paris from downtown Toronto for the weekend, for those who can afford something like that, it might sound pretty cool. Then if you ask them about a massive blast wall that would have to be built, a massive runway that would put concrete throughout our waterfront, the impact on 175,000 individuals who are looking for a home in a new neighborhood in Toronto at Ukumin-Minising and residents in South Etobicoke, both the retrofits and the new designs on buildings that would make it inhabitable toward outdoor access. When you talk about the congestion that we already have on Lakeshore, and then to exacerbate it and make it so much worse, to redesign the Bathurst Lakeshore intersection, the amount of money that would have to be spent, the tax dollars that would be blown to turn Doug Ford's flight of fantasy into something that could even approach reality is absurd. But let's talk about Doug Ford's flight of fantasy. I have not spoken with a reasonable, responsible adult, either proponent or opponent of the idea of jets at the airport, that has said that they believe that it can accommodate 10 million passengers. I haven't found one. I've spoken to a large number of Liberal MPs who represent our city, proponents and opponents alike. I haven't heard anyone agree with the bombastic approach that this Premier has taken. It's not helpful. It's not responsible. It's not adult. It's not helpful to anyone. It has created fear and worry because all of this has happened, along with legislation moving forward, without a plan for anyone to actually review. The Toronto Port Authority has done something very similar. They're having a meeting today. They immediately signed on to a plan that wasn't there, even though their own financial statements conflict with their public position. In other words, none of this makes sense. It's almost like some big American bank is bankrolling this or something, because it doesn't logically make sense. Why is this all happening? So, yes, is the survey a good survey that the federal government has used? No, of course not. It's skewed. But is there finally a public consultation process? Yeah. So let's take advantage of that opportunity. If you don't like the survey, write to the government directly. Send an email. Contact your MP. Get involved. This is our opportunity to save our waterfront, and I am optimistic because I believe that the majority of MPs care about Toronto. I believe that every member of council cares about Toronto, and I believe that Torontonians are not looking at this simply as a question of jet or no jet. They care about the livability and quality of life of the residents along the waterfront and for all of us in Toronto to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak? No, I'll say a couple words. First, I'm going to move the motion that Deputy Mayor Malik brought to us. Just quickly for members, to understand this motion, you have to understand the genesis of the report in front of us. At previous discussions around the island airport, a couple of specific questions were asked. Councillor Matlow asked about housing. I think it was Councillor Fletcher asked about some congestion issues. But the island airport proposal is one of those things where every time you ask one question, you realize, oh my God, it's even crazier, and a whole bunch of other questions occur to you. So this motion from Deputy Mayor Malik, the first section effectively asks, who is this all for? It doesn't seem to be for Torontonians, but it seems to be for a bank, an American bank. So let's find out more about that. The next section is related to that to make sure that the lobbying activity that has been taking place around this is all above board. And thirdly, we've had some very disturbing news be hinted at in the report that perhaps the entire inner harbor just turns into a sewer. So let's find out more about that. And we can come back to this next month with more information. So that's all I wanted to say at this point. Any questions on the motion? No? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay. That takes us to item 11, which is the continuous improvement of the Committee of Adjustment status update. Jeff Cattell. Oh, what's item 10? Oh, Deputy Mayor Morley, are you ready to deal with item 10 now?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of quick remarks, if I may.
Why don't we do that one first then?
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Actually, I lied. Sorry. On number 10, I do have some questions of staff along with remarks, but on number 18, I do just have quick remarks.
Can we deal with 10 now or not?
Sure, absolutely. If it's okay if I do.
Let's deal with 10 and get it out of the way.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you, I do have a few quick questions of staff, if I may, on the report. Humber Bay Shores, Christie's redevelopment, and Park Lawn Go Station.
But it's next on.
Through the chair, what does the secondary plan say with respect to this area, higher order transit, and the delivery timing of the new Park Lawn Go with redevelopment of this site?
Through the chair, one of the guiding principles of establishing the new neighborhood centered around is a new neighborhood centered around transit and a transit hub and higher order transit. Land use policies state that residential uses on blocks 1 through 6 will only be permitted when the station is provincially approved and funding is secured.
Thank you. Can you confirm that the province or Metrolinx were involved or consulted during the process of establishing the secondary plan that put those policies for the Park Lawn Go in place?
Through the chair, when we were negotiating the settlement with the landowners, we were also directly engaged with Metrolinx as they were negotiating a similar deal for the delivery of the Park Lawn Go station. And then as we went through the secondary plan and transportation master plan processes, Metrolinx was involved in those as well. It was very clear about how the development was contingent on the delivery of the Go station.
Thank you for confirming that. How does the Park Lawn Go station factor into the phasing and holding provisions within the existing zoning bylaw? We heard a little bit about that, but if you could just elaborate a little bit.
Through the chair, just like the secondary plan, the holding provisions in the zoning bylaw require the funding and approval of the Go station.
Thank you. When the developer decides to pause their work on the Christie site application, what does that mean with respect to the delivery timeline of the GO station?
Through the chair, at the same time that we received the notice from the developer about pausing the work on the development, Metrolinx received a similar notice from them about pausing further work on the design and development of the GO station.
Thank you. Is Park Lawn officially a PMTSA, a priority major transit station area, approved by the province despite there being no transit station?
Through the chair, that's correct. It is a PMTSA and approved by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Are there any other examples in the approved PMTSAs that do not have an actual physical station or a path to delivery? A clear, confirmed path to delivery?
There are examples of PMTSAs where the stations are not yet delivered. I would say this is the one where there's not a path to delivery.
Thank you. My last question is, as the city continues with long-term planning and transit planning, are we doing so with the assumption of a GO station at the Christie site?
So we're continuing to work with the province to advance the implementation of a GO station in this area, but we're not looking simply at the GO station as all that's required in terms of transit. And we will be looking at other options for transit in the area if this materializes or doesn't materialize.
Thank you. Those are all my questions, Madam Chair. I just have a few comments.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on this item from committee members? Okay. Councillor Morty to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is an incredibly frustrating situation in Etobicoke Lakeshore, and one that has certainly predated my time in office, but has taken a huge amount of focus and energy since we've been here, and unfortunately has not resulted in very much progress despite our efforts. Frustration that construction of important transit infrastructure is reliant on a private developer deciding to move forward with their development project, making the timeline dependent on their profitability calculations and also market conditions, leaves the community behind. We have already grown. We have already absorbed significant amounts of density, all justified and rationalized around this center, meant to not only deliver transit, but also deliver really critical community services and connections that, again, have yet to materialize. And unfortunately, due to the realities of our current context, we do not have confidence in a clear path. Humber Bay Shores is a dense and beautiful community along the waterfront that we are talking about today that will be deeply impacted by a potential expansion at Billy Bishop, and is already struggling with issues of congestion and, again, a lack of services. It is heavily currently auto-reliant due to its location and continues to have bottlenecking and other related issues. We need to implement the recommendations from the Park Lawn Lakeshore Transportation Master Plan, of which the GO station is a critical and key component. The Christie site was a sort of early model of the province's transit-oriented community program, dating back a couple of generations, or a couple of decades rather, which has also failed to deliver for Ward 3 residents at Mimico GO station and has mostly failed to deliver across the region. An operating Park Lawn GO station has been an assumption used in long-term city planning, as I mentioned, and unfortunately it is not materializing. Advocating to and working with city staff on this issue has been an ongoing process, and we're thankful and grateful to them for their efforts, for getting updated data and information, for ensuring that this is a clear priority for the City of Toronto as we move forward with transit expansion planning and priorities. But again, we are limited in what we can do in terms of intervention at the city level. The city, the province, and Metrolinx, along with the developer, are all needed at the table to find a successful path forward for the GO station here. If we are able to successfully collaborate on a path, this will help unlock the Christie site development, which will bring all the elements of a complete community long promised to Humber Bay Shores. This work is underway through previous motions, but there is still so much to do, and we critically need other stakeholders and our partners in other orders of government at the table. Park Lawn is a PMTSA with no GO station, is a high-rise, dense community that has already been in existence for over a decade, and we are in desperate need of a clear path forward. It is government and policy that created this situation. The private market or the private partners are not alone going to be able to find their way through it. We all need to be back at the table together, and we'll continue to advance this work locally and appreciate the support of our colleagues here and our staff for this report and their ongoing collaboration at the city level. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any further speakers? Okay, so on this item, I would like to move, and we can put the motion on the screen. City Council direct that the confidential attachment 1 to the supplementary report, June 3rd, 2026, from the city solicitor is to remain confidential and at the discretion of the city solicitor, as it contains advice which is subject to solicitor-client privilege. So, on the motion, on favor, carried. Okay, we will now go to number 11, Jeff Cattell. You got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm with the Federation of North Toronto Residents Associations, FONTRA. We wish to provide some perspective on the proposed modernisation and streamlining of the Committee of Adjustment. We support the use of technology to improve efficiency. However, we are deeply concerned that the current trajectory prioritizes throughput and the building industry's 5-10-year profitability window at the expense of a longer-term planning horizon required to maintain Toronto's livability. The move to treat a quasi-judicial planning body with Lean Six Sigma efficiency metrics risks viewing democratic rights of residents as waste to be eliminated. Real efficiency is only achieved when decisions are based on accurate data and meaningful public consultation, both of which are currently under threat. We have 3 major concerns. The first one is around accuracy. The current process relies almost entirely on the honesty of applicants. The city's decision to delay addressing the information accuracy gap until Q1 2027, which was from a previous discussion here, a member's motion at council, while pushing for faster approvals immediately, creates a governance vacuum that rewards inaccurate submissions. We've had problems in our neighborhoods, including purported from residents of buildings that haven't even received a certificate of occupancy. Secondly, procedural unfairness in revisions. Residents are frequently blindsided by substantive 11th-hour revisions to proposals. Streamlining must not include the right of developers to change the rules of the game just 48 hours before a hearing, leaving residents with no time to analyze the impacts. And thirdly, processing versus planning. The realignment of the C of A into the Development Review Division signals a shift from long-term planning integrity towards high-volume administrative review culture that prioritizes speed over the unique context of Toronto's neighborhoods. We all share the goal of building a livable city for residents, for all residents. However, speed is not a substitute for accuracy, and efficiency is not a substitute for democracy. The Committee of Adjustment makes decisions that will shape our streets for generations. We urge the committee to slow the streamlining process until the accuracy gap is closed and the rights of residents to a fair, transparent review are fully protected. We recommend that this committee not just receive the report for information, but request the Interim Executive Director of Development Review to report back to this committee in the next meeting to address these issues, the information accuracy gap, the procedural unfairness, and processing versus planning issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the deputy? No, seeing none. Jeff, thank you as always. The next deputy I have listed is Ron Parkinson. Ron, I understand you're online. Can you hear us?
Yes, hello, good morning.
Welcome, Ron. You've got 5 minutes to address the committee. You can start as soon as you're ready.
Great, thanks very much. Good morning, Chair, committee members, city staff, and residents. SUN, which is Scarborough United Neighborhoods, is focused on character, safety, and livability of our neighborhoods. We're nonpartisan and committed to sharing information with Scarborough resident, community leaders, and residents who are passionate for their respective Scarborough neighborhoods. Sun is concerned about the recent organizational realignment of the Committee of Adjustment from City Planning to the Development Review Division and the subsequent directives requested by Mayor Chow to streamline their decision-making process, which already performs at approximately 98% approval rate, which is very deflating to residents who participate in the COA process as they feel their voices are not heard. While the goal of accelerating housing delivery is critical, the proposed changes risk compromising a quasi-judicial independence of the committee, suppressing the community's voice, and creating an institutional conflict of interest. Any policy realignment is a failure if it prioritizes applicant investor profitability over the desperate need for affordable local housing. Sun urges the committee to carefully consider the following negative implications before finalizing the Q2 2026 work plan. Number one, compromise quasi-judicial independence. Shifting oversight to the Development Review Division, a branch we understand to be heavily focused on development volume and speeds, creates an institutional conflict. Forcing staff reports to explicitly state alignment with council housing policies places undue political pressure on supposed independent panel members to rubber stamp applications rather than evaluating them strictly on the 4 tests of the Planning Act. Number two, erosion of public consultation and community voices. Directives that focus heavily on improving timelines and streamlining decision-making for applicants can have an unintended result of truncating hearing times and reducing opportunities for public deputations. Neighbors and community associations may find themselves sidelined, losing their ability to flag localized impacts such as massing, shadowing, and overspill parking. The official plan allows some degree of certainty for all City Toronto residents who value their neighborhoods. Overriding democracy to improve timelines and streamlining decision-making is not a desirable outcome. Number three, risk of mission creep for minor variances. The COA is designed to handle minor, localized variances, attempting to force larger, more complex residential projects through an expedited COA process to bypass the standard zoning amendment track undermines the integrity of the city's official plan. Number four, politicization of panel recruitment. The push to attract new panel members must include those who have more than a transitory stake in the neighborhood, as well as be merit-based. There's a valid community concern that changing the recruitment criteria to prioritize speed and housing output could lead to panels stacked with pro-development insiders, destroying public trust in the committee's neutrality. Number five, overriding environmental protections. Harmonizing minor variances with tree injury or removal permits must not mean weakening Toronto's vital tree canopy protections. Rushing these decisions to avoid conflicting outcomes risks prioritizing minor design conveniences over critical environmental laws. Accelerating housing must not come at the expense of the democratic oversight, due process, and balanced neighborhood planning. We strongly request that the Development Review Division be directed to include robust protections for the committee's independent tribunal status with explicit requirements to follow the rules of natural justice by safeguarding the democratic right for public consultation within their upcoming findings. Sun also supports the comments presented by Fontra. Thank you for your time and anticipated support.
Thank you. Are there any questions to the deputant? No, seeing none. That completes the deputations. Are there any questions to staff? I have a couple. So to the Director of Development Review, there were some pretty serious accusations about impartiality and other related matters in one of the deputations. I was wondering if you could address that.
To the chair. Staff review every application based on the 4 tests of the Planning Act and offer their reports when required to the committee, and the committee makes a decision. The committee is appointed by City Council.
And the rules of procedure are not altered by the fact of moving it from one division to another. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct. We are planning on looking at the rules of procedure this year to reflect all stakeholder feedback that we are hearing, including from residents associations and members of the public.
And the Committee of Adjustment, the very fact of it is something that's established in provincial law, and it places requirements on us to make sure that all parties have access to justice. Is that a fair summary?
Through the chair, that's correct. The Committee of Adjustment is the powers given to the Committee of Adjustment is found in the Planning Act.
And we're not making any alterations to the Planning Act. In fact, we can't. Only the province of Ontario can make alterations to the Planning Act.
That's correct.
I would say the public participation and the independence of the committee, those particular concerns, we agree those are very important and essential. And in fact, those are our core principles that are the foundation for our work program.
Okay, and finally, we've talked about in this report and in other times, improving the recruitment of members of the Committee of Adjustment. That means what we're aiming for there was a suggestion that this is for development insiders. That's not at all what we're doing. Can you comment on what we're actually doing?
That is correct. It's through the chair. We are working really closely with the clerk's office. Obviously, the public appointments process is very transparent process, and we are just looking at how we can further improve that. It will continue to be a very open, public, transparent process.
In fact, one of the things that we're looking for and trying to improve our recruitment is people who understand the principles of natural justice, fairness, transparency, and all of that. Is that correct?
That's correct, including planning policies as well.
Including planning policies as well. Thank you. Any other questions to staff? Councillor Myers?
Thank you. So I'm curious as to what you're going to do to make sure that appointees to the Committee of Adjustment understand their roles. I don't know if I've looked at a few of the meetings, and it's very clear, at least in Scarborough, some of them don't understand their roles, and they believe that it is their opportunity to speak and say anything that comes in their mind.
Through the chair, we spend a lot of time training panel members on their roles, as well as the technical basis for how they should be adjudicating decisions. We're going to continue to improve that training program, both for the current term. In fact, I have a training session next week, while we are also focusing on really enhancing the onboarding training for the next term that will be appointed next year.
Thank you. And how are you going to ensure that members stay up to date on changes to zoning law that the city is making? Oftentimes, a proposal we've seen in the news, a proposal will come forward and it will be rejected. There was one that came forward in Scarborough, I believe, on pharmacy as a right to 6 stories. That was what the city had asked. Permitted, and the Committee of Adjustment rejected it because it didn't fit with the existing neighborhood character, which of course it wouldn't because it's the first one. So how are you going to make sure that they understand and are being kept up to date on the changes that are happening in zoning laws?
Through the chair, I would say that we'll do that twofold. One is through the training that the Secretary Treasurer spoke about with the committee members. Secondly, when there are changes to the zoning bylaw, such as introducing 4plexes or 6plexes like in your ward, we're looking at whether we should be writing more consistently to the committee on those applications so we can provide further guidance or context to the proposal based on the new policies approved by City Council.
Thank you. And one of the deputants brought in, the issue of developers sort of bringing in this last minute information, but it also happens on the other side where residents will bring in information which may or may not be relevant. How are the Committee of Adjustment members being trained to sort of adjudicate what information is relevant on both sides and what information they can't consider or they shouldn't consider?
Through the chair, that's exactly right. And in my time in the role, I've heard that concern from both sides, and I've observed it firsthand through sitting in on many of these hearings myself. I would say that that is one of the key issues that we are going to be looking at this year when we review the rules of procedure, again, with that core principle of making sure that the process is as fair and transparent to everyone as possible.
Thank you. And one of the issues that we've heard, or at least I've heard in terms of recruitment, is part of the reason you can't recruit stronger candidates is that the pay, the remuneration isn't very much. So is that going to be looked at in terms of increasing the pay to attract better quality candidates?
Through the chair, yes, that is something that we heard very loud and clear from all stakeholders when we did public consultation on the mayor's motion and to inform this report back. So that is something that we are looking at with the city clerk's office and the city manager's office for a report back by next January in advance of the next term of panel appointments.
Thank you. And I guess my final question is one of the deputants, the same deputant actually brought up a really good point of making sure that members have more than a transitory interest in the communities that they are involved in. How are you, I know we can't say that, you know, if you're on the Scarborough Committee of Adjustment, you have to be from Scarborough or living in Scarborough, but how are you going to ensure that these members have an understanding of the communities that they're making decisions about, or some connection to these communities beyond just having the expertise in, you know, technical planning law?
As we look at the criteria for panel members, that's something we can take back and think about.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have questions? Councillor Nunziata?
Yeah, I just have one question. You know, sometimes there's a contentious application where you get a petition from all the residents and groups and that. Now, I know it's not mandatory, but do we try to encourage some of the members actually to go out to the site just to see exactly what the residents' concerns are? Because sometimes when you see it on paper, you can't imagine some of the residents coming forward and speaking against an application on exactly how it will have an impact on their community. So do we try to encourage that? Because I think at one time they did. I don't know if they still do.
Through the chair, it is my understanding that most panel members do as much as possible, and to your point, it is something that I very strongly encourage them to do and will continue to encourage.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to the item? No, I'm going to say a couple words. So in moments like these, I always feel like I'm facing a bit of a dilemma. It's very important that we as a governing body give members of the public the right to come and share their opinions and their views, and that we listen to them with attention. On the other hand, I feel that at times, for I think probably, you know, noble reasons, people make accusations about the judgment and purpose of actions taken by the Toronto Public Service. And I actually heard the words from a deputant today suggesting that the Toronto Public Service is trying to rig a tribunal. And I find that profoundly concerning. Maybe it's our fault. Maybe we don't communicate well enough what independent tribunals are about and about the legal requirements that on both the City of Toronto and the Committee of Adjustment and all parties participating in a hearing to a fair, transparent process which recognizes everyone's right to participate. But whatever the reason is, I think it's important in these moments to stand up and say, I hear that you have concerns about the outcomes. I hear that you want to make sure that we're continuously improving. But where I draw a line is a suggestion that somehow the public service is somehow acting in an underhanded, nefarious way. That's unacceptable to me. And I would encourage people who are frustrated by a process, rather than trying to point fingers at people who, quite frankly, don't have the right of reply. Instead of doing that, think about the foundations of how development review works in the province of Ontario. It works according to provincial law. The rights that we have to say a development is or is not appropriate in our community and to fight for the kind of development we want are spelled out in provincial law. And if you're not satisfied with the balance between private interests and the broader public interest, the place to work for that is to work to rebalance how provincial law establishes who has which rights. What will never accomplish your goals is instead to point fingers at the public servants who have to carry those laws out. And so I'm trying to give advice to the public here about how to be effective. You are effective when you work for legal changes in law. You are not effective when you point fingers at public servants who are carrying out the law. With that, I'll move the item. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Deputy Mayor Morley, you had an item that you said you could do quickly.
I do, Mr. Chair, but I do believe there's one
there's
speaker.
a deputy. Members, I'd like to be able to release Deputy Mayor Morley, who's not even a member of the committee. Can we just do this item quickly? Yeah? So item 18, requesting reasonable regulations of length and depth for multiplexes in residential multiple zones. The deputy we have listed is Jeff Cattell.
Good morning again. Again, FONTRA wish to express our, in this case, strong support for Councillor Amber Morley's excellent motion to introduce reasonable regulations for building length and depth in RMM zones. And I won't repeat her long motion. While we generally support the principle of gentle intensification, the current lack of regulation in RM zones has created a loophole that allows for aggressive intensification with developments that far exceed the intended scale of the neighborhood and compromise the planning horizon. City building is a long-term endeavor. When we permit as-of-right structures that ignore basic urban design principles like building depth, we create permanent adverse impacts on the neighbors who must live alongside these structures for the next quarter century. The building industry's profit-driven horizon must be balanced by governance that protects the livability of our existing communities. Our concerns, as raised by Councillor, are the following. The closure of a regulatory loophole. The current multiplex bylaw contains a glaring inconsistency by exempting RM zones from the length and depth restrictions found in all other residential zones, RD, RS, RT. This omission must be corrected to ensure policy alignment across the whole city. Secondly, protection of neighborhood livability. Without length and depth limits, as-of-right developments can reach lengths of over 36 meters on narrow lots, creating wall effects that strip neighbors of sunlight, privacy, and the use of their own backyards. And thirdly, environmental and infrastructure resilience. Unregulated building footprints reduce permeable, soft landscaping, which is essential for stormwater management and the maintenance of our urban tree canopy, key components of Toronto's long-term climate adaptation strategy. We all share a goal in building a livable city for all residents, both those who have lived here for decades and those who will move into new multiplexes tomorrow. However, gentle intensification must be governed by rules that are actually gentle. We urge the committee to support Councillor Morley's motion and restore balance to our zoning bylaws.
Thank you. Any questions of the deputy? Seeing none. Jeff, thank you. Questions, staff? No. Speak, Deputy Mayor Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do feel like a full-fledged member of the committee today, and I appreciate hanging out with you guys this morning. Again, thank you for the opportunity. This is my last item, and we've been working hard in my ward on a number of development files. As this committee will be aware of, there's huge growth pressures in Etobicoke Lakeshore, and we are very supportive of the overall growth necessary to support our wider thriving city in growth zones, as well as gentle density in neighborhoods. When there is a particular development that I reference in my letter to this committee, you all will have seen 63 Station Road. When it first came to my attention, I was very confused how that multiplex could be as of right. If you've seen the photos, you can see the deputant really highlighted some of the concerns that have resulted, that wall effect of the lack of setbacks. It was significantly larger than what I have come to expect from an as of right multiplex, and I also thought there have been some mistakes, but confirmed through our building permit reviews, that it had been completed correctly. After investigating along with my team, I came to the conclusion that there are serious gaps in our zoning bylaw regulations for multiplexes in RM zones, which allow for larger than intended multiplexes when lots are very deep. Larger apartment buildings are allowed in many RM zones, but there are additional regulations in place to ensure appropriate buffers and site management. These very large multiplexes are currently permitted without those additional regulations to manage the scale. The development at 63 Station Road demonstrates this issue very clearly. It is extremely large, it is as of right, and on a very narrow lot. When the applicant wanted to increase the number of units from 4 to 8, the building was reclassified as an apartment, and that triggered variances, meaning that the as-of-right permissions for a multiplex on that lot were larger than as-of-right apartment building permissions. I have worked with our colleagues in city planning, and with our thanks to them for suggestions and language on how this may be fixed. The motion before you and recommendations today are the product of those collaborative efforts. The motion is not about trying to obstruct multiplex development. Again, this is something that I do support. It's about addressing an issue in the zoning bylaw that permits as-of-right multiplexes at a problematic scale. I hope I can count on the support of the Planning and Housing Committee, and again, I thank you for the opportunity to join you today.
Thank you. Councillor Nunziata?
Yeah, I'll move the recommendation. I think a lot of these applications are actually going to the Committee of Adjustment as well, and they're receiving the variance. So I'll remove the recommendations. I have a lot in my ward as well.
Any questions of the mover? Nope. On Councillor Nunziata's motion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. Deputy Mayor Morley, you are excused. The next item we have is PH 3112, overview of Bill 98, implications with respect to planning matters. We have three deputants. Mari Spaskeva?
Spaghetti Sev Seven Scott, like the dance.
Come on up and say it into the mic. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
I brought the wrong reading glasses today, so.
It's fine. This is my first time. I came to a meeting last week. But
have a seat.
I came to a meeting last week, but just sat at the back and listened. And so when I was going through the agendas of planning and housing, I saw this bill and other things that impact our community. Big drastic things are happening, and we don't quite know why they're happening. So I thought I'd come here. Now, I didn't find out until this morning. I had gone through the whole agenda of the item, gone through all the notes and tied it to our community. And I thought I could ask questions, and I found out this morning I can't ask questions. Yes. So instead, I could have ran away and said, how can I go and stand there and do this when I'm not prepared? But I think I can adapt it because it's a crucial matter.
I'm very sorry. I have to interrupt you for a second. We've just lost, oh no. We got him back. Okay. Sorry, we temporarily lost quorum there. You can continue.
So it's a crucial matter. It affects too many people in my neighborhood. A lot of people are really stressed. It's not one item. It's affecting the whole entire community. I'm 74 years old. I've lived in that community for 65 of those 74 years, so I know the community really well. And the first thing that we had to deal with in our neighborhood was in the 1960s when I lost over half of my friends because 300 homes were expropriated and a ditch was dug on the Allen Road to connect the expressway. Now, the expressway was stopped at Eglinton thanks to Margaret Atwood, the whole world, Marshall McLuhan, you name it, Jane Jacobs, everybody was involved. But unfortunately, this orphan stretch has created havoc. Last week, they had a study.
Mari, I hate to interrupt again. Do you have thoughts specifically about the implications of Bill 98?
Yes, because it's planning decisions that are being made. Okay, can someone help me connect with the computer? I can't adapt it.
Sure.
We're part of a study right now, the Marley-Glencairn study of the whole area, and it has lots of implications on how parkland, like one of the items in Bill 98 was parkland, and how you can now decide, the developer can pick the spots and then even not have to worry about encumbrances. And encumbrances means, I read the Expropriation Acts, you can get expropriated. One of the areas in our neighborhood is two of the parks and two of the schools have little green shading around them. The houses that circle those parks are now down in the study, the Marley-Glencairn study, as possible parkland. That possible parkland is about 50 houses, most of which are brand new. And so to be able to expand that park, then those houses would all have to be acquired. Now, the environmental issues with that too, taking all these houses that are relatively new and taking them out, I had to go to a developer's website to read what the developer said about what actually the cost would be to take them out and clear the land and then build something. The other thing is, many properties were acquired over the years on the east side of the Allen Road, no, the west side of the Allen Road, sorry, and they've been boarded up for years and years and years. Right now, there's one pocket of 37 houses and 4 plazas that were acquired, and right now the proposal is for 12 condos on that spot. There is no planning to do like Regent Park or St. Lawrence Community, where you're saying, well, how are we going to integrate schools and everything else? All of that is just, they've been sitting there, and now 12 proposals have gone in. The area of those 12 condos is I went to City Maps, is a little bit smaller than Nathan Phillips Square. So the area is the size of Nathan Phillips Square, and 12 condos have already gone through. We have like over 35 in that little area of buildings. This isn't gentle intensification. It's wild. Let me bring it up now, if I can. I'm 74, I don't do this stuff. And I had to do it because I've got so many people crying, coming up to me, long residents saying, they're putting up 3 40-story condos in my backyard. Their backyard is the border of those condos. And it's like, how do they allow that? And we've got so many questions, and we haven't gotten answers for them. We went to the MP, and, well, we're Glencairn Station. We're like a square. We're not even a PTMS or an MTSA, whatever. We're none of those. This study is to make us one. We didn't know that's why they were doing this study. We thought they were doing, yes.
So you're at your 5 minutes now. I'm going to have to ask you to stop. Are there any questions? No? Thank you so much for your deputation on this item.
See, so we can't get answers from the planning department at those meetings, and now I still can't get answers at all.
I'll try to find a minute to come chat with you about how to work with your counselor. But I've got to move
We're
on.
not getting answers.
Okay, I've got to move on to the next deputant. The next deputant I have listed is Jeff Cattell. Jeff?
Coming.
Just a second.
I just gave him my letter.
Reading his letter and I put it down. Let me just find it.
Jeff, I've called you twice. I'm going to have to start your
It's my
time.
fault.
I'm going to have to start your time, Jeff. Come on up.
My apologies, Chair. Fontra, again, we're writing to express our concerns regarding the implications of Bill 98. Obviously, this is legislation that's passed, happened very quickly, with very little involvement from the public in terms of hearings at the legislature. We acknowledge now that it's passed, it's the city's legal obligation to comply with the provincial mandate. However, we believe it's the duty of City Council to formally recognize and advocate against the significant adverse impacts that this legislation will have on the city's long-term building objectives. It will make the city less green, less ecologically resilient, and less democratic. The major concerns are, first of all, dismantling climate resilience. By removing sustainable design from site plan control, Bill 98 effectively guts the Toronto Green Standard, converting mandatory requirements for energy performance and GHG reductions into voluntary measures that the market has historically failed to adopt without regulation. Secondly, the degradation of public assets. The new parkland dedication rules permit the delivery of suboptimal, encumbered and stratified park spaces while allowing developers to delay dedication until the building permit stage, leaving new residents without essential social infrastructure, potentially for years. Erosion of local democracy, the standardization of official plans and the narrowing of municipal review authority represents a centralization of power that ignores the unique local context of Toronto's neighborhoods and replaces professional planning expertise with provincial templates and the OLT's adjudication. We share the fundamental goal of building a livable, resilient, and vibrant city for all. While Bill 98 is currently the law of the land, quote unquote, we must not accept the degradation of our planning standards as, quote, the new normal. We urge the committee to acknowledge these changes represent a significant adverse impact on Toronto's future and to continue to advocate for the restoration of municipal authority over our own urban fabric. We recommend that this committee recommend to City Council that Toronto actively work with other Ontario municipalities to attempt to reverse the provisions that adversely impact on Toronto's city building and environmental goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeff? No? Jeff, thank you. The next deputy I have listed is Melissa Goldstein. Oh, she's on the next item? Okay. So that completes the deputations on this item. Are there any questions of staff? No, seeing none, I have a motion on this item. Okay, so I'm going to move that Planning and Housing Committee requests the Chief Planner, Executive Director, City Planning to assess the implications of the province's new and proposed changes to the scope of site plan control and parkland dedication, including how context-specific matters will be addressed and the need for any additional or modified zoning standards as part of the reporting on any recommended citywide as of right zoning bylaw amendments, including zoning bylaw amendments to implement new official plan policies. So that sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, but what it means is pretty much what we were hearing from the deputants. This is called Bill 98. I might as well, my view, it should be called Destroying Local Planning Stage 10. And because the province keeps passing more and more legislation, changing what authorities we have and how planning and zoning and work in the city of Toronto and elsewhere. And the thing that is so maddening about it is that each of these interventions affects all of the other interventions. So this will have implications for some of the other terrible things that they've done to us. So this says pause work on the other terrible things that they've done to us and assess in what new and exciting ways this makes them more terrible, and then come back with your work on the other previous terrible stuff, if that makes sense. Are there any questions? Yeah, no questions. So Councillor Matlow to speak.
I appreciate the chair's motion, and I just to kind of spell it out a bit more. Since the Ford government was elected, ostensibly to build homes and to support housing supply, and with the Ford government's stated goal to decrease the unaffordability, to make homes more affordable for people. They've moved Bill 108 in 2019, Bill 109 in 2022, Bill 23, Bill 17, and again, fancy names, more homes, more choices, more homes for everyone, more homes built faster, protect Ontario by building faster and smarter, and so on. So the numbers keep escalating on the bills, and the names keep getting fancier, and the euphemisms keep being invented, but they're nowhere near their housing targets. They've completely failed. But what's happened in the midst is that they keep writing legislation so badly. And this is not partisan. This isn't like liberal, conservative, NDP, Green, or left-wing or right-wing. It's just incompetency. It's really badly written legislation that creates arbitrary restrictions that hasn't saved anyone money. It's actually cost money. It creates longer queues rather than shorter processes. In fact, the work that's actually been most beneficial to housing and communities has been done by city staff, where processes have become more efficient, where focuses remain on quality of life. Despite the suffocating restrictions that have been placed on the city by the Ford government. But it gets harder. It gets harder on city staff all the time, meeting arbitrary deadlines on what should be necessarily iterative processes to get things right, to actually focus on best quality, best standards, great neighborhoods, great lives. That often goes to the wayside because some target date has to be achieved, or else an applicant can go to the tribunal. MTSAs that are, the idea is right, but the quality of life aspects, social services, infrastructure, parks, livability, all of that, social infrastructure, hard infrastructure, are not necessarily part of the package. And I think that what this government has done, not only have they failed on housing targets, they failed on affordability, they failed on quality of life, they failed on even supporting some of the very people who donated to them. Like, they've just failed everyone. They've done a really bad job. The outcome is that we have less housing supply. The province becomes less affordable. Cities have fewer means to be able to provide the social and hard infrastructure to support current residents and those who we want to invite in the future, and everybody loses. And what would I advise the remedy be? A couple things. One thing, whoever is running the provincial government today or in the future should treat the city like a partner. Rather than announce things and make us just kind of deal with it and wear it, work with us. We know our communities, we know our neighborhoods, we know our residents, we know the challenges, and we want to be part of fixing them. And work with us as a partner, and let's develop that together. Second of all, any plans when it comes to housing supply must be accompanied with the need for things like school capacity, pipe capacity, other social services, ensuring that there are parks, places for recreation. And I know this is always sort of this weird lightning rod controversy, but yes, heritage as well. In other words, I just disagree with this concept that you have to pick one or the other. You can do both. I'll conclude by saying this is yet another bill that takes away really good things, doesn't actually provide us with many added tools, and ultimately is just really bad legislation.
Thank you very much. Okay, so why don't we do the amendment and the item as a package? All those in favor, opposed, carried. That leaves us with one more item. I have 3 deputants listed. I think we can get it done by lunch if we are good boys and girls. The first deputant is Mari. Come on up again, Mari. Did you want to depute on this one? You don't have to.
Find everything that's happening in our area so undemocratic. The surveys,
Mari, if you want to address the committee, you should come to the microphone. Otherwise, I have to move to the next person, okay?
as well now, because
It's because people are watching the committee online and they can't hear you if you're away from a microphone.
that's okay. The main reason why I was here is I know that this study, it's in stage 3, so it's coming to City Council, and I wasn't aware. I don't know. You guys have so much to do since you got cut in half by the last election. I didn't know if it would just be one of those things that just disappeared. It just gets passed and it goes on, because I don't think there's been a voice. I don't know what other communities are getting secondary plans like that with such intensification. All I hear in the paper is multiplexes battles. That's nothing. What's a multiplex battle when you've got a whole community exists and people being threatened? So the process, so what I'll talk to now is when you're talking about surveys, when we're going through this process of this study, the opportunities we were given were not very fair. The first session, there were tables set up all around with big maps of how our neighborhood looked up to now, but they did not include any of the 30 proposals for development. And they gave us Post-it notes to go around and talk about where we'd like bike trails, where we'd like more park space, where we'd like the community center. So we were misinformed. So we were misinformed, and we thought growing Glencairn was going to be, oh yes, finally we're going to get some of the services we've never had. It kind of moved from there. When I found out, I started going to some other meetings, and I found out that there's volunteer lobbyists that aren't registered. Toronto is one of the few cities in the world that has a lobbyist registry, and there are organizations that are funded by Build Canada, which is funded by the developers in Ottawa, and that come to meetings and fill out surveys. They actually have websites where they show every consultation, and they even give you talking points to go to them. So some of the sessions that we've had in our community, I know a lot of people in our community. I went around to talk to people that I've never recognized before and just asked them, oh, where do you live? And there were a lot of people who don't live in that area. So there's this problem, just like with the airport, about disclosure of lobbyists, and we do have. We didn't have that in the 70s when lobbyists were all over the place and there was no control, there was no registry. Now there is, but it still gets skipped. There's too much big money around that can fill out surveys, or AI fill out surveys, and I think a lot of the community members don't have the time, or if you're older, know how to navigate computers enough to go online and fill in a survey, or to come like this today. It's just that I think we have a duty to the future, and I don't care what anybody thinks of me today. What's happening is just wrong, and it's got to get called out. People should have a stronger voice. People should be listened to, and what we're doing in some ways is kind of helping developers blockbust. So you buy all these properties, but you leave the guys in the middle, and then eventually you need it for parkland and expropriation. They explain this on developers' websites. They say how it's going to happen, the properties that aren't acquired. So in the end, some of the policies are leading to the city being complicit in blockbusting that was very prominent in the 60s and 70s in Toronto. So there's a whole bunch of things that are brewing under there that we just find out, like that connection with the airport and financing in New York and lobbyists that aren't registered. They come out, the things, but then they come out too late after the damage has been done. And now, for future generations, all of us, decisions we make now are going to, like the orphan crazy expressway that's creating havoc in our neighborhood. It goes on and it just keeps making problems, and it could have been resolved. And it wasn't, because action wasn't taken. The city's done a lot of reports on what they should have done with the Allen Road, and what they should have done was 7C on a survey that they had for the Eglinton area there. 7B was just remove it all to Lawrence. No, it should be removed to 401. And the land, the ditch part covered in, the subway left, and then the city can use that land that it owns and build a whole stream of housing, nonprofit, co-op, the things that we need, not market value.
Thank you, Margaret.
Housing.
You're at your time. Thank you so much. Next, I have Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. Fontra again. I thought we actually might have had a presentation on this item, since it's a pretty complex and interesting multivariate item. Would have been interesting. The report does provide an impressive statistical review of Toronto's development pipeline. The data reveals a disconnect between the current industry output and the long-term needs of our city. The report confirms that speed is no longer the primary barrier to housing. Planning approvals are now occurring 4 times faster than in 2023. Yet construction starts remain stalled at just 31% of the provincial target. This proves that more housing faster, which prioritizes profitability and short-term delivery, is failing to build a livable city. We urge the committee to adopt a triple bottom line evaluation framework to ensure that future growth serves the environmental, the social, and the economic health of Toronto for decades to come. Our major concerns are as follows. The data proves that faster approvals do not equate to more construction. We've got a market standstill, leaving the city with a massive pipeline of investor-grade units that no longer align with market reality or resident needs. The current industry-driven output is skewed towards studios and one-bedroom condos, 62%, while ignoring the essential social need for family-sized housing and missing middle options, like detached row housing, which face a projected shortfall of 2,200 units per year. The decline of 1 million square meters in the proposed non-residential space suggests we're building bedroom precincts rather than balanced, mixed-use neighborhoods. This undermines the city's fiscal stability and its long-term climate and walkability goals. It's the erosion of complete communities, which we talk a lot about, but we are not achieving. We all share a goal in building a livable city for all residents. This requires us to look past the quarterly reports and focus on the longer-term horizon. We need to integrate environmental health, social equity, and good housing economics into a triple bottom line framework. We recommend that this committee request the Chief Planner to report back with an assessment of the 2025 development activity, but with a regard to a triple bottom line framework. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeff? No, seeing none. Jeff, thank you. Now I'm going to call Melissa Goldstein. Not online? No, she's not in the room. So that concludes the deputations on this item. Councillor Nunziata has moved receipt. All those in favor, opposed, carried, and I believe that completes our business. Have a nice lunch.